Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Knoll, and welcome back once again to the Movie Battleground. And we are back, continuing our way through the tournament. We are back in the 0-1 bracket, and this is a matchup that I am particularly interested to see for multiple reasons. So we have Kevin Freakazoid Moreno, who obviously in his debut match got paired up against maybe one of the toughest people a rookie could have been paired up against in Jeremy Adams. And unfortunately, that kind of went the way you would expect it to go. But then he came back against Steve Mesa, who did have a really good debut. And Kevin showed maybe some of the best improvement up there in terms of around like match one to match two. He was easily like top three in terms of improved performances. Really came in with some confidence, stepped it up. After a hodgepodge scenario with that one bracket in the tournament. At one point, it looked like he might be playing the winner of Jacob Barber and Hunter Chambliss, and then we lost both of them. And then it looked like he might be playing the winner of Linus Babcock and Ethan Klein. And then, unfortunately, for different reasons, we lost both of them. And then it became a second chance bracket in which Austin Howell and Henry Sanchez played off. And of course, it is Henry Sanchez that has moved through to the next round, getting that second chance to come back into the tournament to go up against Kevin. Henry is a very similar opponent to Jeremy in that he is a top-tier competitor from the old days. So I feel like this is almost an immediate test again for Kevin to see how well he holds up. And for Henry, this is a chance to get another win on the record and push himself further into the tournament to take on a very interesting opponent, but we'll get into more of that later. Let's go ahead, though, and not waste any more time and speak to the competitors. Introducing first, with a record of 1 win, 1 defeat, he is Kevin Freakazoid Moreno. Kevin, welcome back, sir. Obviously, it's been a little bit since we've seen you. Not in terms of the upload. For them, it's like a normal pace rate, but for me, it's been a bit because of all the delayed issues with this match. How are you feeling, sir?
I'm feeling quite well. I kind of felt like, maybe see what's gonna happen. And I thought like, it's gonna take a while. Like several holidays had passed. I kind of thought like, okay, probably not gonna happen. Which means one of the like, I get glossed over again. Like, all right, okay. I get me and my magic. I get to hang out again.
Yeah, unfortunately, you've kind of been one of the two that's just been stuck hanging around, similar to Madi in the other bracket because of similar issues with another match leading up to him. But we've got you here now, and arguably, out of the 6 potential people you could have played, you've been stuck with the toughest. Let's just put it out there. So, how are you feeling coming into this match after such a good performance last time?
Uh, that like I feel a bit nervous. Not more nervous like I had it with against Jeremy, but still a bit nervous. Like so far, I think last percentage I was 34% confident. This time I'm 37% confident of winning.
Hey, as long as you're building confidence, that's all that's good with me. I'm going to let you sit in the back as we introduce your opponent, coming in with a record of 2 wins, 1 defeat, and 1 knockout. He is Henry Confidential Sanchez. Henry, welcome in, sir. Obviously, you are here. This was kind of your second chance. You got the match I know you wanted against Austin, and pretty handedly. You won't like that I'm saying it this way, but pretty handedly, you took him out. You did me a favor, and now you are here in the second round match. How are you feeling tonight?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. My first matchup went how I would expect, most matchups, given the how it turned out for the most round ones. It just kind of, it is what it is. And then my second one, unfortunately, some behind the scenes issues kind of affected, the process into that one. So that just didn't go my way. Got a second chance. And then I brought it, I had the passion. I brought the heat against Austin, a good buddy of mine. We co-host a show together on my channel. So it was a shame that, I couldn't beat him in like a championship level match and it was so early, but I am still glad I got the result that I wanted. And, Kevin's a nice guy. He appeared in earlier episodes of There Will Be Trivia. So I met him. I know he's a nice guy. I know he knows the stuff. So I haven't taken him lightly or nothing like that. My prep, I did a lot of prep and I'm definitely curious to see what he's going to bring to the table.
Absolutely. I like the just the very calm demeanor compared to previous appearances. I'm not going to delay this any further. We'll go ahead and bring Kevin back in and let's get to the game. Movie Battleground is a game that is a best of 5 rounds. It is the first to 3 points wins. In the event that a competitor should score 3 points in a row, that will be a victory by knockout. On the other side, if it is a 2-2 tie at the end of round 4, we will go into the blind round. However, that is something we will deal with should we have to get there. We'll kind of go into that more in depth if it's something that comes to fruition. In terms of how these first 4 rounds work, the way that it's going to go is the competitors were given the questions ahead of time. They have had the opportunity to prep. They've used as much of it as they possibly could have, I imagine. And the way that this is going to work is they will have 60 seconds to open up their argument. That will be followed by 2 minutes to kind of continue explaining and expanding on that argument. There will be a 4-minute open debate for stage 3 where they will have the chance to go back and forth and get as many hits in on each other as possible. And then they will have 1 minute to close out that argument. Following that, I do have 3 judges in the back in the form of John Marr, because I fucked that up last time, Noah McCausland, and a first-time judge, Alejandro Hernandez. They will come on screen and they will make the decision based off what our competitors have said. Well, with that said, though, you guys have done this a couple times between yourselves. Do you have any questions? Or are we ready to go?
No.
Ready to rumble.
All right, let's go ahead and get into it. And we're going to start off by talking about what has become an oddly persistent category in Movie Battleground, which is video game films, whether it's people suggesting them as strengths or just the uptake in video game films that have come out recently. It's very interesting as to how this is kind of one that's become a very quickly reoccurring thing. And despite the fact that video game films have that common surrounding of being fucking shit, there are a few that are very, very good. And I figure it's high time we discuss the most basic thing you can ask about a genre, which is, what is the best video game film of all time? There's not many on that list. I mean, maybe like a solid 10, but I think these two have picked some solid of that 10 to discuss. And we will go ahead and get the timer ready. Behind the scenes, Henry, because of his placement in the bracket, is considered the favorite for tonight's match. So he had the option of which questions he wanted to go first on. He chose to go first on questions 2 and 4, which means, Kevin, you will be going first on question 1, and the timer will start ticking when you begin speaking, sir.
When I think about the best video game movie of all time, I go to one that falls in line of not only sets itself as a game as well, but also is perfect enough to introduce people to who don't play, who are not familiar with this game, into the world and get people interested in it, and that's Pokemon Detective Pikachu. This, I think, falls perfectly in line with that. It treats its mythology very well. It treats it with respect. It gives people enough knowledge of how everything works, how each Pokemon are set apart from one another, especially even with design, and it gives a proper human characters with their actions. I yield my time.
All right. Cut and clean there. Henry, over to you for your first minute.
Similar to what my opponent said, when you think of the best video game movie, you want to think of a movie that is not only an appropriate representation of the said video game, but also something that stands on its own. So I went with a film that has had some prior IP for it, and they did not represent the video game. So I went with the one that I feel does represent the video game the best, and also is a very popular video game. I'm going with 2021's Mortal Kombat. And the reason I'm going with this one is because this is a very popular IP for fighting video game. So it allows you to provide a lot of action and a lot of the CG that holds up today, whereas the other 2 movies that are live action do not. And it also gives you an opportunity to be introduced to brand new characters and also old characters. So it kind of shows the respect and the love for the fans of the video game growing up and throughout the years, but also provides a lot of opportunity for new characters and a POV from a main character that is new in the franchise, because anyone who's watching this for the first time, they also
And time. All right, we're going to go back to Kevin for 2 minutes.
With Pokemon Detective Pikachu, I feel like it is the best fit with it, because like for one thing, it has picked a noir style of it. It also falls in line with right around with the balance of a kids movie as well, with especially having I think Justice Smith as the perfect fit for it, along with Ryan Reynolds doing an amazing job. Even though he does play Ryan Reynolds, well, he actually does fit a perfect job with it. As the talking Pikachu, especially with this rule of having him only be the one understanding him, while everyone else, all they hear is Pika Pika. It's and also one aspect is each the interaction of the Pokemon, of including building in the Pokemon mythology of its own, with trying to remember the it's a young form of the Skull and the Bone Pokemon. I do not remember his name. I think it's Cubone, where they mentioned like the mythology of that one at the opening of the film. And then part of the part is it's the design of those Pokemon, of how differentiated they look, especially how they will look like in real life. Mr. Mime looks creepy as he would. You can see a scaly Charizard, like how it will look like within that if a natural dragon Pokemon will look like in real life. A Pikachu will be furry. It really does fit a perfect live action format of that. I yield my time.
All right. Henry, back to you. 2 minutes.
So what this Mortal Kombat movie did differently than its other one, it has a concise and very structured narrative. It has a story that it wants to tell that sets up at the very beginning with the new character of Cole Young. And the reason that I feel like this is important, the main story, I should say, the reason I feel like this is important is because this is a character, like I said in my opening, is new to the mythology of Mortal Kombat. So the audiences that go in that are not the diehard Mortal Kombat game fans, they kind of are going in with fresh eyes. So they are seeing this world. They're being introduced to this world through fresh eyes, similar to Cole. So any scenes in this movie that might come off as exposition or just overly talky in an action film is very important and very needed, because not only is Cole Young the main character being introduced to this world, but also this brand new audience. But it doesn't just have this new character; it has pre-existing characters such as Sonya Blade, Kano, from the video games, Jax, which you've seen in other movies, and you have Scorpion, Sub-Zero, you have Raiden, you have a bunch of characters that are well known within the Mortal Kombat video game and have also appeared in other movies. And I love that the fact that they are able to utilize Jax and Sonya Blade as non quote unquote heroes to start off, because they're military and they build up those personas. And Cole Young, he's a fighter, so he kind of has that going on, plus obviously what you see from his historical past. But the main thing that sucks you into this movie at the beginning is the opening scene with who we find out later to end up being Scorpion and Sub-Zero. And it just the effects are beautiful. It's well shot, it sounds beautiful, it looks beautiful, it's very well acted, it has that heart, and it respects its audience to not just be a dumb, cheesy, goofy video game movie, but also a heartfelt action film that on both ends of the action that is behind the scenes very heartfelt and respected on that you're making it, but also it has a lot of emotion to it. So it's not just punch, stab type of stuff. There's a lot of layers to it. So this is a movie that redoes what we saw in the other Mortal Kombat movies, and it respects our audience of the diehard Mortal Kombat fans, but also introduces brand new fans to this world. Mortal Kombat 2021 is awesome.
And time. All right, we're going to move on to the 4-minute open discussion. The timer starts when the first person speaks.
So my issue with Pokemon Detective Pikachu is, honestly, Tim, the main character, Just Smith, he's just not interesting or likable. So that would be okay if he has an arc, but by the end, the arc that we finally get in him, it just feels cheap, and it's because that Pikachu is voiced by Ryan Reynolds, and his character ends up actually being Ryan Reynolds. So there's no layers to it. There's not that heart punch that you're like, oh man, wow, I didn't see that coming. It just, obviously we saw that coming, and he doesn't really grow, and he's not interesting.
Well, actually, he's really interesting. Because the storyline is it's more of like he's had to go to the town for part because like his dad somehow he thinks dead or disappeared. Because throughout as a child, he never he barely saw his father at a young age. So of course, like it sometimes develops that as a part. But with my character, like actually, you actually see sympathy with him. The character of Cole Young is the most blandest, generic character. He's the most forgettable part of the move of Mortal Kombat. His performance is just so bland. He's really generic. He's generic 6554 male dude.
So the difference between Cole and Tim is Tim, he's kind of a whiny brat, and there'd be something to the movie if the actual story kind of gave us the depth of a little more into a backstory of what happened in his trauma of losing his dad at a young age. But they didn't really have that. They kind of touched at the beginning of like, oh, you need a Pokemon, you need to have a friend. But they really didn't get that. Once Pikachu gets introduced as his quote unquote partner, they kind of just throw away that storyline. So by the end, when they actually have that quote unquote arc with the Pikachu being his dad, it really doesn't have that depth. Whereas Cole, you obviously hint at the very beginning because he's found by Raiden and he's saved. But then also when he's introduced to this world, he just has the mark of the Mortal Kombat that at the time he just thought was a birthmark, and then he found out that it's just his calling. So he grows. He starts off the movie as just a regular guy in his eyes, and he has a family. He's a great dad. He's a great husband. He's a fighter. So literally, metaphorically, and physically, he's a fighter. So he's definitely fighting for his family and fighting for himself to become somebody and to find his identity, which we find out later is part of the lineage of Scorpion.
Yeah, but here's the thing with Mortal Kombat, especially with the other films, you can easily do that type of character with Johnny Cage. He was the perfect fit for that. He is the perfect audience avatar for that. He of course in the first movie he was kind of cocky fighter, and he didn't even know what Mortal Kombat was, but in the end he did got into it and he ended up fighting.
So what you're saying is you just want another recycled story that we've already seen in the other movie. What I've said is this movie is original while still holding true to the Mortal Kombat, which also throughout the entire film, once we get started I'd say about a half hour into the movie, of a 2-hour movie, there is Mortal Kombat from nonstop of multiple, and honestly, the beginning, which you have the Scorpion and Sub-Zero fight to start, there is Mortal Kombat layers of this movie where you have fight scenes after fight scene after fight scenes. There's only about 2 or 3 scenes in your entire movie where you actually have the concept of Pokemon and catching Pokemon. And guess what? You waste arguably your most famous, aside from Pikachu, who's the main character, your most famous Pokemon character in Charizard in just a little 2-minute scene where he fights in a battle, and they're kind of like caged up and like,
But here's the thing, my movie is not about the Pokemon battle scene. This is Pokemon Detective Pikachu. This is Pokemon Detective Pikachu solving a mystery. That's the point of Detective Pikachu. Mortal Kombat is about a fighting tournament. This Mortal Kombat movie is fighting, but it's not about the tournament. The tournament is more of a follow-up to the next few movies.
And time. All right, you guys are going to each get 1 last minute. Kevin, yours is up first. It starts when you speak.
Well, the Pokemon Detective Pikachu is the best video game movie of all time. It probably fits the narrative of the Pikachu game for the 3DS, that of the mystery of which is the mystery of like what happened to just the character's dad, and if he's alive or dead, and what happened around it. Then which brought layers, especially with the acting other not just in the different characters as well, along with forgot her name and side forgot the character's name and her Pokemon Psyduck, which are then finding out more, leading to more and more situation, and then having interaction with Mewtwo, but also more company conspiracy, but also when it's visually improving with all the creature Pokemon design, and of course with interaction of the Pokemon along with the Mr. Mime and stuff. And I yield my time.
And time. All right, Henry. Final minute. Time starts when you speak.
So, like I said, everything with the Pokemon Detective Pikachu is just generic and bland. You know that quote unquote twist by the very end. It's exactly if you've seen a movie that's maybe a detective story, you know exactly where it's going to go. Unfortunately, they made the decision to voice Pikachu by Ryan Reynolds and also have Ryan Reynolds be the actual dad and have a main character who he was over 5 years old. So if you're over 5, then you're going to remember what your father's voice sounds like, especially if you had a relationship that really affected you that much. They didn't go into the depth. Whereas Mortal Kombat, you have Cole Young, who's a fantastic character who leads. He's an everyday man and he leads and he shows the audience, oh, this is what this world is. But you also have the returning characters, Sonya Blade and Jax, who are fantastic. They're military soldiers. You have Liu Kang and Kung Lao, who are fantastic. Not only are they just good characters and their acting and their performances, but their powers are fantastic. You have Liu Kang's the fire dragon. That was beautiful to see. Raiden, everything with his effects is fantastic. You have everything between Scorpion and Sub-Zero, which that ending fight is more memorable just from the opening scene in Mortal Kombat, and also that ending fight is more memorable with anything in Pokemon Detective Pikachu combined.
And time. All right, guys, really solid first opening fight. I'm going to go ahead and send you guys to chill out in the back while I go ahead and bring in our 3 judges. All right, guys, we'll go ahead and get into this. Only a small couple number of fact checks. These guys were pretty much on it. Just to confirm for Kevin, the character you were speaking of earlier with the little dinosaur head was Cubone. That is the name of the character. And the character portrayed by Catherine Newton, who has the Pokemon Psyduck, is Lucy Stevens. But other than that, let's go ahead and get into it. John, I go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main point that sold you?
I truly believe that Kevin loves the Pokemon franchise, but I had to go with Henry. Just stronger points all around. Really sold me on the fact of Mortal Kombat being a good balance for fans and non-fans alike. They can both enjoy the movie. I would think I was totally sold on that point.
All right, Alejandro, I go to you next. Who gets your vote, and what was the main point that sold you? And you are muted, just so you know. Your mic's muted.
My bad. Surprisingly, my vote is going to go to Kevin. I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan. I really liked the Mortal Kombat 2021. The trip at the finish line for me was you would call TJ or whatever his name is boring. I didn't see Detective Pikachu, but defend Cole. That guy's. I think Kevin's absolutely right. That guy's just boring and bland. He's kind of generic. I watched the Lego movie. He's exactly Emmett. He's just the special. Like, he doesn't have anything to go on. So that's why I'm going with Kevin on that one.
All right. And Noah, I head over to you for the split decision. Who gets your vote, and what was the main point that sold you?
So Kevin, for me, was only able to talk really about the fact that the looks of the movie matched the video game, as well as maybe the mystery behind his dad and everything, only being the redeeming parts of his movie, while Henry was able to bring up a lot of more points about his movie, but he's also able to counter Kevin's counters against his movie in a more efficient manner. So I'm going to give my point to Kevin. Sorry, not Kevin, Henry.
I don't want to speak for you, but I felt like I was gathering the vibe. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and send you guys to the back. And as I said, very good first round. Nothing less than a split decision there.
Apparently, I look like a Kevin. Maybe I should change my name for Noah next time.
That is an expenditure that Movie Battleground will not be covering. We'll go ahead and move on to question number 2, which is a little bit of a leftover. You guys may remember at Christmas, we had a Christmas exhibition that unfortunately fell apart behind the scenes. One of our great producers and competitors, Kevin Poss, was unfortunately very sick over Christmas. And after delaying the match and then debating delaying the match again, he just dropped out. And then a bunch of the questions that the great Chad Webb wrote kind of went to the side. So I told him, I'll force them on some of the regular competitors. So here we are, a Christmas question in like February, I think, by the time this match airs. So with that said, or maybe it's the end of January still, I don't remember offhand, but it is a Christmas question. And the question is, thanks to Chad Webb, what is the most overrated Christmas film of all time? There are so many Christmas films that I feel like are beloved, but some of them maybe just don't quite deserve the love that they get. And just knowing what these two guys' answers are, there's definitely going to be some stepping on some toes here of people who love Christmas movies. So let's go ahead and waste no time getting into it. Henry, you are up first, and the timer will start when you speak.
So when speaking of overrated, there's always that fine line you need to draw of what constitutes as overrated. So I'm going with the route of, for the overrated Christmas movie, a movie that is fine, probably has its true fans, but the reason that it's actually talked about and discussed is because it's thrown in your face yearly, every few hours on TBS, and that is A Christmas Story. I feel like this movie, based on the actual narrative and the acting and the performance, the directing, all the stuff from a filmatic perspective, is fine at best. But the reason that it is in the limelight is just because one day back in the 80s, they decided they want to just make this an every year thing, a tradition, quote unquote, probably because of the name, A Christmas Story. And that is the reason that it is considered, quote unquote, I want to emphasize that, considered, not actually is, a great movie. So the reason that I think it's not is because honestly it's not that great of a movie, which I'll get into further details later. But my main point is of why I consider it overrated is because it's thrown in your face, and that is the only reason people consider it famous.
And time. All right, Kevin, back to you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
There's common phrase of like, that movie, it's so overrated, it's like, oh my god, there's so many like so many holiday movies, like, oh. Okay, the reason why so my pick is Home Alone for the most overrated Christmas movie, and it wasn't because like it's just one of the most like pretty dull Christmas movies. I'm like, it's all about the story about he left his parents to like left the child on home alone on the holiday on Christmas, like while the rest are going on vacation, like, and it's the most like pretty generic storyline. And the only reason why it became popular was it's the start of the Macaulay Culkin, the cast of the actor of Joe Pesci, and it's just a movie that's set around Christmas. I'll play more of the details. I yield my time.
All right, Henry, back to you for 2 minutes.
So for a second, I thought Kevin was taking the Noah route and saying the wrong one, because I thought he was describing my movie of A Christmas Story when he was describing dull, because that is the exact opposite of how I would describe Home Alone. Home Alone is a culmination of multiple genres and tones. You have comedy, you have adventure, you have action, you have crime, you have thriller, you have family, and you have a little bit of just sadness to it. There's a lot of emotion that you go into it. And this is, less than a 2-hour movie, and it culminates all that perfectly. And I love that you said that this movie is considered popular because it's the start of Macaulay Culkin. And that is true. And that's why this one is rightfully ranked so. Macaulay Culkin, after he started this one, he went on to star in multiple films like My Girl, other movies that I'll look at in a second. But more importantly, he actually got a sequel for this movie because he himself was an icon, and this movie was fantastic in its own right. So it wasn't a cash grab. This is rightfully so. A lot of people might even consider 2 just as good as 1, and no one considers it bad because of what it started in this one. So it is rightfully rated. Whereas A Christmas Story, it got a sequel years down the road, and spoiler alert, it doesn't star Peter Billingsley in this one. And actually, if you look at his filmography after it, he doesn't really even have any major credits credits to his name, let alone in a starring role. No one even remembers him except for later in a bit role in Iron Man and in Spider-Man Far From Home. So you're like, oh yeah, that guy from A Christmas Story, versus like, wow, that's Macaulay Culkin, or what you would say if it was Macaulay Culkin. Like, wow, that's Peter Billingsley. Like, oh wow, I know I recognize him, because he's just a nobody, doesn't matter. And the structure that this movie goes in, of having a lot of narration, which already is lazy in its writing and its storytelling. Bob Clark made a poor choice in doing that, but also it actually has an adult voice instead of Peter Billingsley's Ralphie, because he just wasn't a good actor. Whereas if they took that same approach in Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin would in fact 100% be the narrator, because of he just is, and he's way above his time. And unfortunately, later in his life, he got into drugs, but that doesn't attest to his actual acting abilities. So he kind of took a break later. But at this time, he was fantastic. He was off the rip. He was a rock star from the beginning. He was the early ages of Marty McFly, and he's that great. Macaulay
And
Culkin.
time. All right, Kevin, back to you.
The wording, but why I say I consider Home Alone is overrated. I really do find this story plan. No, but like, it's really not that much about the holiday to begin with. You can, with the Christmas Story, you can actually, like, it has a holiday heart in its sleeve with that movie. But this one, you could set this movie around any other day, like not just holiday, but any other day. Even like you say, like a summer. But for some reason, they decided like oh, make a Christmas movie. But no, okay, also that Kevin McAllister is a punk kid. I mean, seriously, you can't. They're out at the beginning of the movie. You kind of can tell that like he is pretty much punk, and kind of don't think they should feel bad for leaving him. You can see, like, he is that much of a punk. For sure, I mean, sure, it did get blamed for a mistake that his uncle made, but no, he is a punk. Well, in the Christmas Story, the main character of him is kind of a sweet kid, and the reason why the narration for A Christmas Story is mostly because you could probably tell that maybe he's a grown adult telling that a story of his Christmas, of that Christmas time when he was a kid to probably his children or maybe his grandchildren. This one you can't pretty much want to work with that. And of course the reason why it kind of started led to the Culkin Renaissance is because of one scream. It's the most pointless scene of that. I yield my time.
All right. We are going to go ahead and go into the 4-minute open debate. The timer starts when the first person speaks.
So I think the difference between these movies is I like how you brought up the fact that this movie could be set in any time. And I think that actually helps my argument, because the fact that this is a beloved and well-known Christmas movie, even though it technically story-wise could be set anywhere, makes it, kind of gives a reason of why it's beloved. Whereas, like I said, your movie is forced upon us on Christmas. The audience of A Home Alone chooses to watch this movie on Christmas because it is actually beloved deep down, not because it's forced upon us.
No. Okay, what you're explaining, it's not more overrated. You're more saying it's overhyped, because that's pretty much kind of the definition of an overhyped film.
I feel like there's no difference for that. Overrated is, like I said, the reason that a lot of people even bring up this movie is just because it's on TV every day. Your story is actually like I said, I'm honestly confused on maybe we swap scripts here, because how you're describing my movie is you're describing your movie. It's a family that you don't even care about. It's got cheesy moments like the leg with the sticking your tongue on there. It feels extremely dated. This is like a movie that could have taken the approach like the 3 years later, Stand By Me, where it's a little more adulted and how kids act, but all these kids act like kids. Whereas in Home Alone, you say he's a punk kid. At the very beginning of the movie, he's sweet. He just wants to spend time with his family, but he's just amongst a bunch of kids, and then he just gets pushed away, and that's why he's forgotten. So you actually have that emotion of like, I'm sure someone has felt like that, where you felt like the black sheep of your family and you get left behind. And at first you're like, oh wow, this is a kid. I'm gonna do a bunch of stuff, blah blah blah. But then you actually feel like, wow, I miss my family. You miss the family that treated him like shit, and he still missed him because he has a full arc. Whereas in A Christmas Story, it's just boring.
No, but with the Christmas Story, it's feel like it's like more. It's set of at its perfect time, and of course that pretty much would tell of a kid around that time period. This one I'm like, kind of wouldn't see that.
Yeah, so it, like you said, it might feel around that time period, but if it feels like it's a specific time period, and it doesn't hold up. Whereas Home Alone, it feels timeless. There's many scenes in the entire movie that, you know, he's just going out doing things. There's nothing about the movie that feels dated. And like you even brought up, Joe Pesci, him and I forgot the other character's name right now, but the two of them, the Wet Bandits, they're just so predominantly well known, and like you said, sure, that's not specifically Christmas related, but I feel like that's what makes it even better and even more profound, is because so much of this movie is well known and popular and very memorable, but despite throwing it in your face that is a Christmas movie, but it is definitely a Christmas movie because Christmas is at the center and there's multiple references. Whereas your movie, it's just forced in our face. It's not an interesting movie separated. And if you just take the Christmas, idea out of the title, it's not even that memorable, and there's nothing about it and that's why I feel like super overrated.
No, but I feel like if it's sitting as Christmas now, it shouldn't, no matter what, it should be around Christmas. If it's with a holiday, if it's a holiday, then that holiday is should be the forefront of it as well.
And I feel like you're kind of helping my argument there, because you're saying that the reason that this movie is great is because it says Christmas in the title. And that's exactly what I'm saying. It's overrated for that regard because it doesn't earn the right of being a top tier Christmas movie, just like it doesn't earn the right to be on TV every year. But unfortunately it is. And that's the only people watch it. No one watches A Christmas Story like, hey, I'm going to pop in A Christmas Story. They're like, hey, I'm going to put A Christmas Story in the background. Home Alone is an event. You watch it with your family. You watch it by yourself. You can watch it at any age. You can watch it with your friends. You can watch it with your girlfriend. You can watch it with your mom, with your dad, and you can learn something from it. And there's a lot of layers to it. Whereas A Christmas Story, you just put it on in the background. It's like elevator music.
No, but for A Christmas Story, actually, it is the forefront of it. Like it is and also with Christmas Story, it built up to the day of a Christmas Day event. Like it's not like a perfectly week during his a few days before Christmas and the building up. Then around the end time, it's on a Christmas Day. He gets a be ready gun around it. That's where it perfectly fits.
And time. All right, we are going to go into the closing arguments. Henry, I go to you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
All right, so like I said, A Christmas Story, if you take Christmas out of the title, then no one even cares about this movie. There's nothing about the actual storyline that is memorable. To piggyback off what he just ended, to get the ultimate story is for him to eventually get the present that he wanted, but there's no lesson at the end of the movie. There's no real arc, and there's nothing that you really get, oh, wow, I got a present, and, maybe not to shoot my eye out. Whereas Home Alone, the reason that Christmas is not predominantly in the forefront is because he was forgotten. So it goes away from just being a Christmas movie to being a family film of, I need to get back to my son. And if you realize the mom at the very beginning, she kind of brushes off Kevin, but as soon as she realizes that she left him, her motherly instincts kick in and she wants to go save him. And that is a beautiful arc for not only her character, but also everything that Kevin learns at the end. He literally says before they leave, I hate you guys and I wish I wasn't part of his family. And by the end, he missed them dearly and he really wanted them. So the dream of living on your own as a kid is taken over by the fact that he needs and wants his family. So there's a full arc in Home Alone. Christmas Story is just boring and in your face too much.
And time. All right, Kevin, I go back to you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
But here's the thing. We're talking about a Christmas movie. I feel like mindfully you can easily do really shouldn't matter. It count as Christmas movie at all, but it is. And I feel like it's rated like not just that. And to be honest, I think eventually when you watch it a few more times, it kind of is pretty much a dull storyline of it. But and also, I really don't think it's that should have been that memorable because remember the scream and of course, regrettably yelling the name Kevin, and that's what's dull. But with Christmas Story, there's so much to remember. The tongue sticking out, him wearing the bunny suit of Fragile as a gift, the leg lamp, even the "you're shoot your eye out, you're shoot your eye out," even a more experience with Santa Claus. It really is.
And time. All right, guys, another solid debate. I'm going to go ahead and sit you guys in the back and bring in our three judges. Before we go ahead and make the decision, I'll give them a little more time to think over their answers. I do have a couple of fact checks to bring up from the argument. So the first is in terms of the A Christmas Story airing on television. The event is called 24 Hours of A Christmas Story, which consists of 12 consecutive airings of the film, starting on the evening of Christmas Eve, moving into the evening of Christmas Day. It did not begin in the 80s. It actually began over 10 years after the film came out in 1997, with TNT being the first channel to pick it up. It then moved over to TBS in 2004, with it airing either only on TBS or concurrently on both TNT and TBS. It seems to kind of depend on the scheduling of the channels over the course of the years. Home Alone was in fact the first breakout role of Macaulay Culkin. Obviously, all of us know him for a number of roles, but when you think about the big films that he is remembered for, the only one that came out before Home Alone was his role in Uncle Buck, which also was involved with John Hughes, which is actually how he got the role in Home Alone to begin with. Peter Billingsley, was a child actor in the 80s who kind of disappeared over a few years. His biggest roles since have been during the 2000s, where as both an actor and in a behind-the-scenes capacity as both a producer and a director, he became known for working with Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau on films such as Elf, Zathura, The Breakup, Four Christmases, Couples Retreat, and of course in Iron Man, which he was a producer on, and subsequently in Far From Home as the character William Ginter Riva. For all you geek players, that's a question you now know the answer to. Home Alone does in fact have not much to do with Christmas. The only scene that takes place on Christmas is the final scene where the family come back. The entire rest of it is just kind of around the season. So theoretically, it could be set on any holiday, as Christmas itself doesn't play much of a role into it. There are multiple reasons families could take vacations. The reason the narration is as it is in A Christmas Story is because the movie itself is based on the book In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash by author Gene Shepard, and it's a semi-autobiographical book that tells stories of his childhood. There were in fact two films based off of this book, A Christmas Story in 1983 and My Summer Story in 1994, both of which were directed by Bob Clark, and Shepard himself served as the narrator for both of those films. Which is why that is the way it is. As was mentioned, A Christmas Story, there technically are sequels, but it's a little weird as to how that works. Technically, My Summer Story is a pseudo-sequel because it's based on the same events and it does take place a little later. There also was a technical sequel in 2012 in the form of a direct-to-DVD movie called A Christmas Story 2. It's fucking crap. Don't bother watching it. And actually, funny enough, as of 3 days before the recording of this match, it was announced that HBO Max was moving forward on A Christmas Story, which will be an actual proper sequel to the original movie. Peter Billingsley is returning in the role of Ralphie, and it'll be set 30 years after the original in the 70s, with him himself having his own family and his father having recently passed. And the final thing is the bandits in Home Alone. Obviously, the one that was mentioned was Joe Pesci as Harry. The one that was forgotten was Daniel Stern as Marv. With all that said, though, it's about what was said and not what wasn't, / my fun facts, because that's what I do behind the scenes. So I go to the judges. Alejandro, I go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main thing that sold you?
This time, I think the main point of it being just completely boring, I'm going with Henry on this one. You might as well have one of those YouTube videos with like the crackling fire instead of A Christmas Story playing. I think anybody would choose a Home Alone over A Christmas Story at any time. Just when you hear Home Alone, you hear that familiar jingle, it makes you feel good. So yeah, I'm going with Henry.
All right, Noah, I head down to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main thing that sold you?
There were two bombs dropped by both competitors. One with Henry saying that it's pretty much the starting point for Macaulay Culkin's career, and that he did such an amazing job in that movie. And also the bomb that Kevin dropped with kind of saying that it's not really centered around Christmas and everything. But in the end, I feel like Henry was able to counter that pretty well, and he was able to counter a lot more things, as well as bring up why his movie is overrated, but also state why Kevin's movie is properly rated, I guess. So I'm going to have to say Henry on this one again.
All right. Judges, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and send you guys to the back as I bring in our competitors.
Fun fact for that, Home Alone actually takes place in my hometown growing up in Hammond, and they mentioned Griffith, Indiana, which is a town that I also lived in. And Gene Shepard, there's a center called the Gene Shepard Center, and that is, like you said, the writer. So it was very hard to diss my hometown movie, essentially. So
Also, another fun fact: the reason why I'm named Kevin was because of Home Alone 2.
Well, we're all doing our own research today, although Kevin didn't need as much for that one. We're going to go ahead and move on to question number 3. And while there were a lot of questions in that round and notes about Peter Billingsley and Macaulay Culkin and subsequently the kind of lack of careers that they've had after being child actors, one person who did start out as a child actor and successfully transitioned into being an adult actor, almost successful as that transition, was Leonardo DiCaprio. And let's go back to the positive side of things. Leo has made a lot of great films. In fact, I think we'd say he barely has a bad film. I think even his worst films are kind of just mediocre. I think it's very difficult to find a straight up bad Leonardo DiCaprio film. And that's not the question we asked. The question we did ask is, what is Leonardo DiCaprio's best film of all time? There's a couple of big juggernauts I think we could pick from. He's got 5 Academy nominations, 1 win. That film wasn't selected. That's one off the table. But I think the ones that were picked are definitely some of the ones that are up there. Kevin, you are back up first on the docket, so the time will start when you begin speaking.
With the Street, Wolf of Wall Street, I think it's easily the best Leonardo DiCaprio movie. It's something I think we rarely ever see him play something like these kind of title characters, especially the enthusiasm he played when his character gets overexcited. Like, you see how the range he lets off, like all kinds of range, from the excitement and yell of the moment when he gets when he's humiliated, when he's coked up, or when he actually pulls a limp, or like walking drag, and couldn't even one of the favorite parts of the movie is full of panic drug phase during the cruise. I feel like this is easily his best performance of all time. I yield my time.
All right, Henry, over to you for your opening minute.
So similar to the last question, you always have to go into the question with a mindset of how do you want to approach it? Because the question states, what is Leonardo DiCaprio's best film of all time? Not necessarily his best performance, but his best film. But people can, go about it their own way. So I want to emphasize my performances. Although he was not nominated for a performance Oscar, you also have to realize that I'm picking a genre film, and that's just how it goes with the Academy, especially in 2010 when Inception came out. So I don't necessarily want to have this discussion where it's what is he better in acting wise, because guess what, Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the greatest actors of all time. He's fantastic regardless. So I am going to take the approach of talking about what is the better movie, and Inception is arguably one of the best science fiction movies of all time. This is a movie that is completely original. Christopher Nolan brings into a film of heist jackers where they go into people's brains and they take out ideas and everything, and then that goes along of how, if we can take out ideas, can we incept an idea into their mind? And that is what this film is about. You're not going to see anything like it, but you might see others like it.
And time. All right, Kevin, back to you for 2 minutes.
With the person I'm against saying that this this question is pretty much the best Leonardo DiCaprio film of all time, of course, but also other factors. It's not just the whole film as well. It's how it's Leonardo DiCaprio performance, but along with direction as well. With Martin Scorsese gives able to elevate this magnificent performance of Leonardo DiCaprio with this, especially when he works with with Matthew McConaughey, Spike Jones, John Bernthal, Jon Favreau, Rob Reiner. He gives such a magnificent range, especially when we worked around them along with Jonah Hill and Margot Robbie, who I'm pretty sure this is also her feature film debut as an actress. Probably not. Maybe. Well, I'll get corrected soon and feel like a total idiot. But the thing is, it's not just his best film, but also I feel like it's the film where pretty much his performance also really just matters, especially along with directors. And I feel like Wolf of Wall Street actually is that perfect film of Leonardo DiCaprio that really is his best film of all time, and including that where I give my time.
Okay, no problem. We'll go ahead and skip the timer forward. Henry, you have 2 minutes on the clock.
So I'm going to bring this up one more time because I don't want to get bogged down in the open round of back and forth of semantics, but I just want to bring up the fact that just because he wasn't nominated doesn't mean his performance isn't fantastic. Dom Cobb has so many layers in this movie of being a fantastic. This is probably the one movie where you're like, wow, if he was British, he could play James Bond. That opening scene where when he's in the suit and he's dressed up and he's got the gun and the silencer and he's doing all that stuff like that felt like James Bond, the slick back hair and everything about it. So you have that action hero moment. You also have the team moment where he's working together with the team. Talk about Stat Cash. You have Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Elliot Page, Ken Watanabe, Tom Hardy with his breakout role and showing that, oh, he's this. I want to give him a respect because everyone always forgets his name, and I do too. Dilip Ryo as Yusuf, who's fantastic. But you also have Cillian Murphy, Tom Berenger, Marion Cotillard. You have all these actors that he's working together, but it's not about stealing the show, even though his performance is fantastic. It's about working together as a team, which is exactly what the story of Inception is, working as a team. So you have layers to that. You have the whole motivation of getting back to his family. And like I said, Inception is completely unique. Not only is it, there's no other movie like it. I can't say that the opposite, like your movie. There is not only movies like The Wolf of Wall Street, there is movies like The Wolf of Wall Street directly from the director of Martin Scorsese. It's called Goodfellas. Mostly everything from this movie is a ripoff of Goodfellas story-wise and narrative-wise. But you also have a lead character in Jordan Belfort who is a despicable human being, and it glorifies the actions of ripping people off, objectifying women, doing horrible crimes, and it treats him like a hero. Whereas in my movie, you have a man who technically is breaking the law, so I will cancel that out a little bit, but he has the motivations of getting back to his kids. So if you're going to relate to something, you want to relate to having that motivation to get back to your family. He's a family man, but he's also a good friend, and he's doing everything he needs to do. He's a great lover. The relationship that you get down to between him and Maul, of the story of what happens, because he does the Inception. Spoiler for Inceptions, by the way. Skip that if you haven't seen it. He incepts the mind of the concept in Maul's mind of everything you getting back. So when you get down to it, she kind of breaks down and you have that guilt, and she kills herself because she doesn't know the difference between fake and reality.
And time. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and go into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer will start when the first person speaks.
Go ahead.
So with Inception, I feel like I would more consider more in Christopher Nolan film than in Leonardo DiCaprio film. Because I feel like with Leonardo DiCaprio, he doesn't give a fine performance. It's fine. I feel like the more he worked, but it's with the people around him are do that, because I feel like both Elliot Page and George Gordon-Levitt give a more better performance than he does in that film. And plus, also, Leonardo DiCaprio, okay, he does this thing in some of his dramatic movies, which was in William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, and also Titanic. He dramatically yells tend to become overly over dramatic and cheesy, especially when he's just like "Ma, Jesus Christ!" He kind of gives this ironically cheesy, hilarious performance with that.
Okay, so I actually love that you brought that up because I was going to use that a point against your movie. Your movie is, first of all, 3 hours long, which it doesn't need to be. It's a definition of excess. This character is about excess, but the film in length is also excess. But in your 3 hour movie, he yells for almost the entire time. Sure, Leonardo DiCaprio, look at his entire career. He yells. That's a character trait of the actor. But in my movie, in a 2.5 hour movie, he yells maybe 2 or 3 times. And sure, you just gave an example of him yelling, but guess what? The difference between him yelling in my movie and him yelling in your movie is heart and emotion, and it actually has an impact, where yours is just screaming, and it's, like I said, it's a concept of objectifying women. It's a part of being a scumbag, of ripping people off and doing terrible stuff.
Well, yeah, this is a lot of people. It's a life story of a scumbag, and it pretty much, it's not saying, oh, he did an amazing thing. Oh, he did an amazing thing. No, he's sort of a scumbag. People on Wall Street, it's sort of scumbags. It's like, especially when we see him where he full on cheated on his original wife for then Margot Robbie, who then also cheated on her with several other prostitutes.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't feel like we should be glorifying this performance in this person by not only having, by the end, oh, he gets in trouble a little bit, loses his company, but there's no real lesson, because guess what? At the very end of the movie, he's over there doing seminars again, and the real life characters on TikTok making a living of, being a figure. Whereas in my movie, you said he doesn't really have anything memorable. There's layers to this performance where, like I said, the opening thing with the Bond-esque like performance, the scene where he pretends to be the Mr. Charles bit, where he's telling Cillian Murphy's character that he's in a dream, and you kind of have to, like I said, start the inception process. So you're stepping in the mind. If you're in the dream, you're having the layers of the character, like you said, the mall death scene, the scenes where you're kind of hinting at his traumatic past when he's talking with Elliot Page's character, of like, what is going on with you? That's just between me, and he has layers. There's so much going on with this character. It's not one dimensional, unlike yours.
It's not more of one dimension. It's more like he is basing off the performance on the actual guy. With especially like with Leonardo DiCaprio, like doing the whole after the I think, were they lemon heads or whatever the pill that Jonah Hill would find God and they end up taking, where he full on, like, just fully drugged up and fully limping, walking all that slowly, all drugged up, and driving the car. Like, he does give such a amazing performance with that, but not just that. Especially while yes, he does, yeah, but it's not much like an overreacting,
Well, if like your example of the scene where he's on the lewds, if that is to be like so over the top, and so the kind of the point of why that your main argument, then you might as well just pick The Revenant, because guess what? That's what that entire film is him doing physical damage to himself. So I feel like that just misses the mark. Whereas like I said, all in your movie is just yelling, he's just physical and over the top and crazy. Whereas in my movie, there's emotion, there's action, there's layers to it. And Leonardo DiCaprio, it's most famous movie, his most famous performance, and it's also amazing.
Time.
Reaction movie.
All right, we are going to go into closing arguments. Kevin, you are up first. The time starts when you begin speaking.
Wolf of Wall Street. It's a perfect fit Leonardo DiCaprio autograph display of one of an actual Wall Street life, where coked up drug, like it's all that stuff, but Leonardo DiCaprio, of course, he gives it are the perfect fit to do and like are words, but are the perfect fit for this movie, because like it's one of the most fascinating life of Jordan Belfort. Leonardo DiCaprio like gives a match for it, especially with the people he worked with. I'll give my time.
All right, Henry, back to you. Final minute on the clock.
All right, so like I said, if we wanted to glorify this despicable person, then we might as well just watch Goodfellas. This doesn't bring anything original to it. If we want to glorify him doing physical performance, you might as well just watch his role that he actually did win the Oscar for in The Revenant. Inception is completely unique and original. It's a story that, sure, you want to say it is a Nolan movie at the helm, but guess what? Leonardo DiCaprio is leading the charge. He's fantastic. He has layers to it, both as an action hero, as a team player, and also as he has emotion with his family aspect, with his kids, and also the death of them all. There's so much to this movie that on rewatch, you learn new things about the movie, but there's nothing that kind of hides and it's tricky and it's confusing. There's just depth and layers to it, which that's a reoccurring theme with this entire movie. Your movie, you get the point by the end, and unfortunately the point is excess, and it's living a despicable life. You're glorifying this terrible human being that unfortunately to this day is out there running around free, and he's a terrible influence that a lot of people that if this was out in the early 90s, they would be causing people to do stuff like this. It's a terrible influence. People, just like how people misinterpreted Fight Club, people would be misinterpreting The Wolf of Wall Street because it is a terrible movie.
And time. All right, guys. Great fight. I'm going to go ahead and send you guys to the back and bring in our 3 judges. And I do have just a couple small fact checks. So going off of Margot Robbie, while this was technically not her screen debut, this arguably is the thing that in one stroke put her on the map. She had 2 films come out in 2008 and 2009 called Vigilante and ICU. However, neither of those saw a wide release outside of her native Australia. She didn't do a film for 5 years then, and in 2013, the same year that The Wolf of Wall Street came out, about a month ahead of The Wolf of Wall Street's release, she was in the film About Time by Richard Curtis, also starring Domhnall Gleeson. However, arguably, this was the film that put her more on the map, as she is a supporting character in that film, and obviously box office-wise, it is not a match for The Wolf of Wall Street. The Wolf of Wall Street is exactly 3 hours long, coming in with credits at 180 minutes, so that was not a bluff or an estimation. It's literally 3 hours long. And the drugs that were taken by Jordan Belfort in the scene where he kind of crawls across the ground on his face are methaqualones, better known on the street as Quaaludes. The reason that the lemon was brought up because in the film they refer to them as lemons, which was the company that produced them. And this is just a fun fact. In the film, Leonardo DiCaprio actually did snort a powdery substance when he is seen snorting either Quaaludes or the cocaine in the film. It was actually a mix of different vitamin powders in order to try and give it the appearance of whatever drug he was snorting. But with that said, it is about the debate. Noah, I go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main point that sold you?
I feel like Kevin struggles with clarifying his argument instead of he mainly just recaps the movie or tells his favorite parts of the movie and then tells who was in the movie and how the director worked with them. But I don't really get a sense of why his movie is the better performance. And with Henry's kind of clarification that he's talking about the better movie instead of the better Leonardo DiCaprio performance, but also mentioning that his performance was good in that movie, I'm going to have to give it to Henry.
All right. John, I go down to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main point that sold you?
I think Henry's saying that basically, Scorsese films after Goodfellas or derivative of Goodfellas is like a knockout punch to the face. So I had to go with Henry.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and send you guys to the back because your winner by a knockout score of 3-0, Henry Confidential Sanchez coming in with a big victory. All right. Now, I'm going to let you enjoy the gun show in the back for a second. I'm going to flip it up from the normal, and I'm going to speak to Kevin first. We'll learn why in just a sec. Kevin, it was a solid effort, but unfortunately, not many people have had the luck of being stacked up against not one, but 2 kind of OGs of the game, all of whom have really shown up and played well. Even the ones who traditionally didn't in the past, like Mehdi, and I don't feel bad saying that because I think he'd agree, but everybody has shown up and played well this time around, and you just got unlucky with the way things fell. How are you feeling?
It's better than the one that get Jeremy at least.
Yeah, I'd say so. You got votes in this one. I think that one was just a complete slaughter.
Yeah. Again, I expected this to be that it goes the way it is. Like when you get someone that played really well before, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be doomed. I'm doomed no matter what. So I just I'll do the best I can. I'll do what I could.
Absolutely. And obviously you are out of the tournament, but because you're out in the quarterfinals and you haven't advanced further, you do have the opportunity to kind of make the schedule on the next go around. So I guess my question to you is, are you interested in coming back for another one?
Yes, yes. I really had fun doing this, and hopefully, I don't again end up against a really professional at this.
Well, don't worry. At least you know your next match will be against somebody who also just lost, if that's any goodwill towards you. Kevin, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and send you to the back, and I will bring in his opponent who came out with the victory, Henry Confidential Sanchez, 3-1, 2 knockouts. Again, I've said it since day one. You know, you and Jeremy are kind of the two aces who came back and have been performing, and the only difference between you is that one unfortunate loss on your record. But you're showing out on that second chance. You got a knockout victory. How are you feeling?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to harp on too much. Shit happens, but my one loss, I feel like that was more behind the scenes issues. Is kind of just unluck of the draw of the situation what happened. So I don't want to harp on much. Shit happens, but when you give me a second chance, you know, I'm like a phoenix. I'm gonna rise from the ashes. I did feel like it was appropriate to bring out the gun show here on Movie Battleground, where guns are that. So I thought that was fun. But yeah, I had a blast. Kevin's a nice guy. Like I said at the beginning, I met him on There'll Be Trivia earlier. He showed up. I know he knows his stuff. He made me sweat a little bit on some of the questions, despite getting all the points for it. You know, I definitely had to work hard. I told you behind the scenes, I prepared for him. I didn't take them lightly. You know, I had notes. I showed the guys behind the scenes, you know, my notes that I wrote. So yeah, I had a blast. I love debating. You know, it's what I said behind the scenes as well. It's not about what you know. It's about how you can, you know, talk about what you do or don't know, because sometimes you don't even have to know something. You just got to bullshit a little bit better. So I had a blast with this. I love the questions, and I can't wait for next round against some a-hole.
Yeah, we'll get there in a second. So if you want to take some pride with you, with this performance, you have completed the clean sweep. Every matchup in the 0-1 bracket in the quarterfinals ended in a knockout. Every single person that's in the semifinals, be it Matt Beer, Sean Hunter, yourself, and the guy you're playing next, all earn knockouts in their quarterfinal match to move on. So definitely, statistically speaking, an elite four. And the reason I keep hopping around the bush is because if you haven't been paying attention to the brackets, the next person Henry plays is me. Now, I don't know if you remember this because I didn't until having to look something up and kind of stumbling across it. We have played before, back in like the old days, and you beat me, which just gives me even more motivation to want to come back and beat you. So how are you feeling about your matchup? Now, here's the part where you talk shit and say I'm easy and whatever.
No, I'll say that behind the scenes, but when it comes to like the on-camera stuff, I have to lie and, you know, put on face. But yeah, you're a great guy. You're awesome. I wouldn't be here without you. Fill in the blanks, bullshit. No, so we have an interesting history. I'm still mad at you. Years ago, you judged a debate between me and Evan that I've watched numerous times over the years. That I feel like I won that, and that was back in the old solo hosting days. And you just had a different opinion, and you liked Evan's answers more than mine. But so I still have that beef with you, so I'm always down to fight that. And you live and learn. We joke about that now for years. We're pretty good friends. But in terms of debate, I know you know your stuff. I know you know how to prep clearly with all that over the top fact checking you do behind the scenes. I know that at the bare minimum you're gonna have notes and you're gonna be ready to go, and it just depends on, you know, who can bring it better by the end of the day on the actual battleground. So it's gonna be a blast. Hopefully we quote unquote respectfully don't talk over each other, which I don't know, to be honest, how that's gonna play out, but I'm gonna try my best to bring it, and I know you are, so I can't wait for it.
If I can say anything, I'm going to give the effort to make my game look good. I kind of have to. I'm the guy that runs it. But it'll certainly be an interesting matchup, and I look forward to seeing you actually in this exact same position on the battleground in just a few weeks. I'm going to go ahead and send you to the back, though. Enjoy this victory for the time being, guys. And that is it for the quarterfinals. As I said, all 4 quarterfinals matches in the 0-1 bracket have been completed, and all of them end in knockouts, which is absolutely insane to think about. I think that establishes more than anything that the 4 guys that have moved on, even if I still publicly say I disagree with me getting a knockout, we have earned our spot. We have earned our chance to be here. And that's all going to culminate. And it begins on Saturday. That's right, guys. This Saturday, the first semifinal match goes up between Matt Beer and Sean Hunter in the 0-1 bracket. So be sure to tune in for that. Next weekend, we have the first one in the 1-0 bracket between Joe Fairley and Jay Burns, and then the next two will follow subsequently after that. The 19th will be my match versus Henry, and then the week after will be Jeremy Adams taking on his opponent. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching. I want to say thank you to my three great judges behind the scenes in Alejandro, John, and Noah for being here tonight and being a part of the match. Thank you to Kevin Moreno for coming in and playing. I look forward to having you back. Congratulations to Henry Sanchez on the victory. Please be sure to rate the video, comment, subscribe, interact with the channel, and do all that. And stick around for more Battleground content. On behalf of myself and my fellow producers, my name is Aaron Knoll, and I'll see you guys next time on the Movie Battleground. Take care, everybody.